Hello everyone. Hearty welcome to the 9th lecture of the Nature Matters video lecture series offered by the Postgraduate Department of English, Payyanur College, Payyanur. This lecture is based on the lesson The Truth About the Floods, which is included as the 9th lesson of the textbook Nature Matters, Readings on Life and Nature, prescribed for the second semester UG English Common Course students of Kannur University as course 2A03 ENG. We are now in the middle of a pandemic caused by COVID-19 and the entire world is witnessing its repercussions. Many people across the world have lost their lives due to this novel virus, and no specific vaccines have been invented for this disease so far. Speculations and investigations about the origin of this virus are still going on. But the interesting thing is that this is not the first and might not be the last in this league. We have been witnessing many such dreadful disasters over the centuries. The epidemics like these and the natural disasters like landslide, earthquake, tsunami, flood, etc. have taken their toll on the humanity. In fact, our own state Kerala has witnessed 2 consecutive floods in the years 2018 and 19. Why does this happen? The answer is that though we call them as natural disasters, they aren't so natural after all. That is, the human activities can also pave the way for such disasters. Deforestation, mining, pollution, etc. can ultimately lead to such disasters. Once they happen, they put our lives at stake. They cause significant damages to our life, health, property, and it badly affects even the economy. Hence, the victims find it hard to come back to the normal life. They do require financial assistance for rehabilitation. It is quite apparent in the Indian context where such disasters are common occurrences, and we often come across people who lost everything in these calamities. We hear that the government releases relief funds, but whether they are properly distributed is still in question. Today, we are going to see a poem titled The Truth About the Floods, written by Nissim Ezekiel, which shows the pathetic plight of the flood victims who are denied help and support by the government officials. First of all, let's have a look at the profile of the poet. Nissim Ezekiel, an Indian-born poet of Jewish descent, was born in Mumbai in 1924. He is one of the foundational figures of modern Indian English poetry. Apart from being a great poet, he excelled as a playwright, editor, and art critic. Though he was coming from a culturally different background, his poems were well in tune with the Indian sensibilities. His poetry is introspective and self-analytical and often deals with themes like love, lack of belongingness, familial relationships, sex, death, etc. His famous poem, Goodbye Party for Miss Pushpa T.S., is very Indian as it parodies the Indian way of speaking English. Another famous poem, Night of the Scorpion, draws a scene from Indian rural life, drifts through personal crisis, and unveils the superstitions which are part of Indian society. A very common or silly scene of a home is presented in the poem For Elkanah. His works also reflected the hard social realities, though in a satirical way. His popular verse collections are A Time to Change, 60 Poems, The Unfinished Man, The Exact Name, Hymns and Darkness, and Latter-day Psalms. He won the Sahitya Academy Award in 1983 for Latter-day Psalms. He was honored with Padma Shri, India's fourth highest civilian award, in 1988. He was professor of English and a reader in American literature at Bombay University in the 1990s. Ezekiel died in 2004 after a long battle against Alzheimer's disease. The poem The Truth About the Floods is based on a report by V.K. Dixit that appeared in the Bombay edition of the Indian Express on 25th September 1967. The report is about the flood that occurred in North Bihar and Orissa. The poem unveils the reality about the flood and the life of the affected people. Now let's move on to the poem The Truth About the Floods. For a visitor to the flood affected areas of Balasore, Mayurbhanj and Cuttack in North Bihar and Orissa, it's a job to get at the truth. Meet any official. He will claim his district, subdivision or block is the worst hit and pass on a handout with statistics of relief work. The poem opens with the poet's intention to go and visit the flood affected areas. As a reporter, he feels it is his duty to visit the places in person and know the truth about floods. Hence, he visits the flood affected areas, namely Balasore, Mayurbhanj and Cuttack. These are the places in North Bihar and Orissa which are severely affected by the flood. The poet could have easily collected the data related to flood by meeting any government official. But he knows what can be expected from a government official. The government official would claim that his district or subdivision or block is the most affected. In order to prove this, he would provide some documents showing the statistics of the relief work he organized. But the poet's experience has taught him that such documents can be either fake or misleading. So he finds it apt to visit the flood affected areas himself. The village of Mandaspur, 9 miles from Balasore district, the granary of Orissa, early morning. After 8 days of floods, paddy fields with knee-deep water. A villager speaks. I have 11 children. 2 I have left to the mercy of God. The rest are begging somewhere. I went to the village to find out the truth. All the houses had collapsed. Many were washed away. The men, women, and children were silent. They gazed at the sky. I had walked 2 miles in muddy water to reach the village. But the villagers would not tell me anything until I convinced them I wasn't a government official. This part of the poem talks about the poet's visit to Mandaspur. At first, the poet visits the village Mandaspur, situated 9 miles away from Balasore district. This village is called the Granary of Orissa, and it is evident that farming is the backbone of the economy here. The poet reaches the village in the early morning. The village has been subjected to 8 days of successive flooding, and as a result, all the paddy fields have been submerged. The villagers whose major occupation is farming, are at a loss as they fail to earn their daily bread. The poet meets a villager who tells him how his life has been shattered by the flood. He lost two of his children in the flood, and the remaining ones are begging to sustain their lives. This shows the deplorable condition of the villagers. When the poet explores the village further, shocking sights welcome him. All the houses in the village have been collapsed. Many people have been swept away by the flood. The survivors remained silent. They were looking at the sky helplessly. The poet really struggled hard to reach there by walking 2 miles in muddy water. But the villagers were not ready to talk to him. The unwillingness of the villagers to talk to the poet arises from their misunderstanding that he was a government official. The poet here presents a very powerful irony, and we can find that it is getting repeated in the upcoming stanzas as well. The government officials are supposed to help the people, but here we can find that the villagers, the people, they don't trust the government officials. The reason for this mistrust can be due to the negligence of the government officials who failed to lend their assistance to the villagers. The floods were sudden. The entire village was asleep. We heard a roaring sound and were engulfed. We took shelter on treetops. When the villagers of Mandaspur were convinced that the poet was not a government official, they start talking to him. They talk about the flood that overturned their lives. According to them, it happened all on a sudden at night when they were asleep. They heard a roaring sound and immediately water engulfed the whole area. They had to take shelter on the top of the trees to save their lives. A relief party came at last. 5 students with a transistor, a tin of biscuits, a camera. The villagers ran to them. They slapped their bellies and whined. I have not eaten for 3 days. My husband has been washed away. My parents have abandoned me. My daughter is dying. I cannot find my daughter. Don't make a noise, said the students. Sit down in a circle. The villagers sat down in a circle. They did not say another word. The transistor was on. The biscuits were distributed. The camera clicked. Then the students left, humming the tune of a popular Hindi song. From the villagers, the poet comes to know about the visit of a relief party to the village. The villagers said the relief party consisted of 5 students and they brought with them a transistor, a tin of biscuits and a camera. When the relief party came to the village, the foodless and grief-stricken villagers ran to them. Slapping their bellies and crying aloud, they expressed their problems to the students. They communicated their miseries, poverty, pathetic living conditions, and the missing of dear ones, hoping that the students would help them. The students asked the villagers to sit in a circle without making any noise. The villagers obeyed the students silently. Turning on the radio, the students distributed the biscuits and clicked some snaps with the villagers. After this, the students left the place in a jovial way, singing a popular Hindi song. The attitude of the students shows that the flood victims were not at all their concern. They came to the village not to offer any help to the flood victims, but to click some snaps with them so that they can use it for earning fame and public attention. Here we see the mentality of some people who never miss an opportunity to market themselves. I moved on and arrived at a swollen tributary. The boatman wouldn't ferry me across till I told him that I wasn't a government official. As the boy moves on, he reaches the flooded branch of a river. He had to cross the river to reach the next village. He approaches a boatman for help. But the boatman is not ready to take the poet in his boat because he doubts that the poet is a government official. Here, through the refrain, Ezekiel emphasizes the resentment the people have against the government officials. I arrived at Aardra, but the villagers wouldn't talk to me till I told them I wasn't a government official. At Badapur, I heard the children wail with hunger. An atmosphere of despair pervaded the village. I asked the men to help me organize relief, but they turned their backs on me till I told them I wasn't a government official. The poet goes to the villages Aardra and Badapur. Here also, the poet is welcomed with the same indifference from the villagers because they think that he is a government official. The people in Aardra are not ready to talk to him. In Badapur, he sees children crying with hunger. The people are plunged into gloom and despair. Their pain hits the poet hard and he requests their help to organize relief. The villagers do not pay any attention to the words of the poet until they are convinced that the poet is not a government official. The district authorities at Balasore admitted they had failed, but they claimed they could not have done better. Nature, they said, had conspired against them. Write the truth, they said, in your report. And so I did. The concluding stanza of the poem talks about the poet's meeting with the district authorities of Balasore. The authorities admit their failure in organizing the relief work before the poet. Yet, they add that they have done their maximum. According to them, it is all because of nature. They say that nature is plotting against them. They ask the poet to write the truth in his report. It is obvious that they need a report in favor of them. Here we are reminded of the book titled Everybody Loves a Good Drought by the eminent journalist P. Sainath. It's a compilation of the articles he wrote which opens up the failure of many government projects and the alarming rate of corruption in India. The authorities in the poem pretend that they are helpless and they demand a report that may defend them. The concluding line of the poem, "And so I did," can be ambiguous. Ezekiel ends the poem stating that he wrote the truth, preferably the truth that he discovered through his investigation. That is, he writes his version of the truth. A further observation is that he succumbs to the threat of the corrupted bureaucracy and writes the truth as he was asked. Here the line, "And so I did," offers a different meaning. The poem, The Truth About the Floods, is noted for its direct and prosaic style. The poem doesn't have a specific rhyme scheme. The irony and the refrain used in the poem shows the artistry of the poet. Ezekiel's social commitment is evident throughout the poem. His concern for the deprived class, his angst about the mismanagement of funds, his sarcasm at the inefficiency of the system are all reflected in the poem. Hence, this poem is a perfect example of his social criticism. With this, we wind up the discussion of the poem. Now, let's move on to the comprehension questions. Question number 1. What are the flood affected areas? Who is tasked with visiting them? Answer. Balasore, Mayurbhanj, Cuttack in North Bihar and Orissa are the flood affected areas. The poet is tasked with visiting them. Second question. Identify the officials' claim about the flood in their district. Answer. The officials claim that their district or subdivision or block is the worst hit and they pass on a handout with statistics of relief work they did. Third question. Describe the village when the poet visited it after the floods. Answer. The poet visited the village Mandaspur, the granary of Orissa after the flood. The paddy fields in the village were in knee-deep water after 8 days of flood. All the houses were collapsed and many people were washed away. Fourth question. Why were the villagers gazing at the sky? Answer. The villagers were gazing at the sky to check the possibility of yet another rain because the 8 days of flood had already taken its toll on them. They were either in fear or hope. The fifth question. What did the villagers say about the flood? Answer. According to the villagers, the flood happened all on a sudden in the night. They were sleeping and they heard a roaring sound. The water engulfed the place and they took shelter on treetops to save their lives. Sixth question. Who were the members of the relief party that came to the village? What did they bring? Answer. The relief party consisted of 5 students. They brought a transistor, a tin of biscuits and a camera. Seventh question. How did the villagers respond to the relief party? Answer. The villagers ran to the relief party, slapping their bellies and whining. They communicated their grievances to them. When the relief party asked them to sit down without making noise, they did so. Eighth question. Why did the students actually visit the village? Answer. The students visited the village to click some pictures with the flood victims. They left the place immediately after they got it. It is apparent that they were aiming at fame or publicity. The ninth question. How did the villagers respond to the poet's request to help him organize relief? Why? Answer. The villagers turned their backs on the poet because they thought that he was a government official. Their passive response shows their lack of faith in the government officials. The 10th question. What was the excuse offered by the district authority? What do you think is the reason for their excuse? Answer. The district authority admitted their failure in organizing the relief work, but they claimed that they could not have done better. According to them, the flood was the result of nature's conspiracy. They blamed nature to cover up their failure. 11th question. What is the central theme of the poem? Answer. The central theme of the poem is the ineptitude and apathy of the government officials in organizing relief for the flood victims.
Thank you.